There are so many waterfowl here.
In the spring, migratory birds don't all arrive at once, but rather in waves. Each species passes through at a slightly different time, and even non-birders often know that spring is on the way based on the birds they are hearing and seeing. Today, I'm looking for a specific variety of waterfowl that is known to migrate in massive flocks.
Hey everyone, this is Ryan from Badgerland Birding, and today I'm on a wild goose chase.
Geese are among the first species to fly north when the ice and snow begin to melt, often moving in groups and making stops in flooded fields and shallow ponds en route to the tundra. I made my way to a migratory flyway in central Wisconsin in hopes of finding all 5 expected species that move through the middle of the country.
I'm in Columbia County where there's a lot of farmland, and I'm looking to find all 5 goose species that are expected to come through the Midwest on any given year. So that's the Canada goose, cackling goose, Ross's goose, greater white-fronted goose, and snow goose. And some of these species look very similar to each other, so it's going to be a little bit of work picking them out, but I'm at my first location, so let's see what kind of geese we have out here.
Much of Wisconsin's Columbia County is farmland. The hills and depressions of the landscape cause natural puddles to occur when snow melt and rain collect. These areas are perfect for geese. I immediately spotted Canada geese out in the distance. Along with them was a very similar looking but smaller counterpart of the Canada goose, the cackling goose.
There are tons of cackling geese out there mixed in with the Canada geese, and cackling goose versus Canada goose is one of the toughest IDs out of all of the geese. You can tell the two apart because the cackling goose will be smaller than the Canada goose, and to me they look more like little bowling pins because they have that shorter neck and a smaller head and bill.
The cackling goose as a species is comprised of what was at one time the 4 smallest subspecies of Canada goose. The species was eventually split, but hybridization still occurs among the 2 birds. While their patterning is nearly identical, the size and shape of the cackling goose set it apart from the Canada, with the cackling goose having a shorter neck, stubbier bill, and visibly smaller size. These pint-sized geese spend the winter in the southern portion of the Mississippi Flyway, in addition to the west coast. During migration, they head north to northern Canada and Alaska. Cackling geese eat plant matter, including but not limited to grasses, berries, and roots. After taking some time to appreciate my first of year cackling geese, I turned my attention to another species that had just flown in.
Just picked out a couple of greater white-fronted geese out there as well, so 1 stop and 3 geese species already on the board. Now we need to find the snow and the Rosses, so in these groups, we're going to look for white ones.
At a distance, the white-morphed snow and Ross's geese are quite noticeable when they're present. Then the only question becomes, which of the 2 species are you looking at? I cruised down the road and got to a large pond that was occupied by an impressive amount of birds, including some white-colored geese. I found another pond on the same road, and it has some pros and cons. One of the pros is that it is loaded with birds. I see some ducks from here, I see some white geese, so check if those are Snow or Ross's geese. But the big con is that it is far away and into the sun, so it is really tough to see, but I'm going to try my best to see what bird species are out here. In this pond were several species of ducks, even more greater white-fronted geese, tundra swans, and a handful of aforementioned white geese. Based on the size of the birds and the size of their bills, I identified these individuals as snow geese. I even found a few blue-morph snow geese mixed in.
Just 1 more goose species left to find, and then I have all 5. So this has been pretty cool so far, still a lot of time left.
Next, I went to Schoenberg Marsh, a hotspot for early migrants in the area, complete with walking trails, a small pond, and a larger marshy area. Here I found red-winged blackbirds, eastern meadowlarks, and American kestrels. I walked one of the grass trails toward the pond that still had ice on it, where I located a few pairs of sandhill cranes and got my first up-close looks at greater white-fronted geese. This allowed me the opportunity to truly appreciate this interesting species. The greater white-fronted goose is an overall brown color with orange legs, an orange bill, white just behind the bill, and dark patches on the underside. In flight, these geese have white on the wings and a white U-shape on the rump. Much like the cackling goose, greater white-fronted geese spend winter in the very southern points of the US and Mexico, as well as the west coast. They then fly north to their breeding grounds, where they spend the summer. Greater white-fronted geese eat a wide variety of plants, seeds, grains, and tubers. During my trip to Columbia County, the greater white-fronted goose was by far the most numerous species I saw. While I was watching the greater white-fronted geese, I heard a near constant commotion coming from the direction of the marsh. The whole time, large flocks of ducks and geese were flying overhead and landing on the ice. I'm at Schoenberg Marsh right now, and there are so many waterfowl here. There's just geese all over the ice. There's ducks flying over, sandhill cranes calling that you can probably hear. And I was a little worried there weren't going to be many geese when I came out here, but I've hit the jackpot for sure. So I'm going to see if I can find a Ross's and complete the 5 geese species. This location felt like an airport for the waterfowl, with groups of them coming and going, making for an incredible spectacle. Scanning the thousands of cackling, Canada, and greater white-fronted geese, I picked out another blue-morph snow goose, as well as an interesting-looking white goose that in its shape and bill looked like a Ross's goose, but seemed to be larger than expected. I showed the video of this particular bird to some other birders who hypothesized it could be a hybrid. Feel free to weigh in the comments below. Without a definitive Ross's goose found yet, I went back to driving the county roads and looking at puddles in the fields. I found a similar collection of species at each one, with many of the same ducks and geese I had already seen occupying the flooded fields. I did, however, add horned lark and Eurasian collared dove to my list for the outing. After driving around for a while, I went back to the pond where I had originally found snow geese. With the sun now at my back, I had an easier time picking through the birds. Near the front of the pond, I saw 2 small white geese. When one of them lifted its head, I was able to see the short, stubby bill, indicative of a Ross's goose. While they were distant views, it was still exciting to find all of my target goose species. I went back to Schoenberg Marsh to take a look at the impressive number of birds there, and reflected on my findings. Just found a Ross's goose. It was mixed in with the other goose species, and there was a nearby snow goose for some size comparison. The snow geese will have a bigger bill, generally be a larger size, and have a bigger grin patch, which is hard to see from here, but to me that bill looks small enough to call it a Ross's, and that overall shape looked like a Ross's. So successfully found all 5 species of geese, and this has been a great day. Even though on this day there were large numbers of geese, they moved through quickly, so timing is everything. I was lucky enough to catch all 5 species at the right time and felt very pleased with my day. The Midwest's annual spring goose migration is certainly an amazing sight to behold and marks the beginning of what is sure to be a great spring for birding. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Badgerland Birding.